welcome back to the channel. This week, Dimebag is back on the dance floor, man. So our friend over at Blow Eye Racing, Chris, you guys have seen us over there a bunch of times. He's not gonna put on the dyno just yet, but he's gonna throw his laptop on it, play with some stuff, and get it a little more drivable so that we can maybe put some miles on it before it hits the dyno. So we do have a bunch of work. We have to do the full bed, which also includes a bunch of fabrication with framing. We have inner fenders to do and some beauty panels. And then just all the little knick-knack paddywhacks, you know, that last 3, 4, 5% that most of these builds need to get done. So our checklist is very short, but nonetheless, there is one. So I'm gonna get this thing over to Blow By, let Chris do his magic. Chris has got his computer out. Chris, what exactly are you gonna do for us?
Well, we're gonna try to get this thing running and idling smooth and see if we can give it a little gas and some RPM, make sure she's not popping and spittering and stalling anymore. So we'll start with that and then take her to the dyno, find out what happens.
Rock and roll.
Quick little pause there in the tuning session. Chris noticed that the alternator was only putting out 12 volts, which is pretty much absolutely nothing. That's just battery voltage. So I did a little bit of peeking around and saw that our ground cable right here was not hooked up. So that alternator on our Wagner kit, just like any other painted alternator or any accessory drive kit that's painted, you have to have an external ground. So that alternator has a boss for an external ground and it wasn't hooked up. So hooked it up and now we're generating plenty of voltage. We've got 13.8, 13.9 at idle, so I'm assuming we should be okay once we should get over 14 volts. Yeah. So let's get back to it and Chris can start making the right adjustments now with the proper voltage, so everything he's doing will actually work.
All right, Dimebag is on the lift. It is time for us to kind of give this thing a once over, checking all the nuts and bolts, making sure everything's tight, you know, maybe going over some of the wire things. We do have a leaky brake line here, so we're gonna remake this one. We got a little situation back here. When you lay the truck out, our license plate slams the ground, and it looks like it actually kind of bent the bumper a little bit. So we're gonna be taking the license plate off, seeing if we can't do something nifty with that. So maybe try to reset it so that the number of the plate is up way higher and it doesn't hang down below the bumper. We're also hitting this exhaust right here when it's laid out, so we have to modify that a little bit. And again, just checking up on all the nuts and bolts, checking all our fluids, and just making sure that everything is worthy for the road. License plate is now flush with the bottom of the bumper, so now that's not going to jam into the floor, the ground, before the truck gets to the point where it's laying rocker, which is what we're looking for. So I do have to get a new license plate light. The old situation was the frame had the light in it, now the frame is gone, so ordered a light off Amazon, which will be here hopefully on Wednesday. We'll be able to get this finalized and painted and put back in. So next thing we got to do here is modify our exhaust a little bit. Couple issues. This one is about 1 inch lower than this side. So right here, if you see, this is where we're hitting ground. Also noticed that probably somewhere between welding and getting this top bracket on, this muffler is sitting slightly pitched up and this one is pretty flat. So by pulling this one up a little bit to match this one, that could possibly help with our clearance issue here, because this whole side's going to come up. Also, our tips on our exits, I already got this one marked here. It's kind of hitting the side of the truck and it's just giving a pretty nasty little rattle noise. So we're going to clearance this side and this side as well. Right here you see it's resting on the truck side itself. Most people, they'll make a bigger hole and put like some kind of trimming around it, but we're trying to avoid that, just because you have this trim here and then you'd have another trim here. I think it would be a little ugly looking. So just gonna go ahead and take these tips out, clearance this a little bit. Hopefully that will fix that problem, get this thing to sit up a little higher. So I think what I'm gonna have to do is cut this weld off here, take a little meat off of our bracket, and get this thing pushed up, and we should be good to go. All right, exhaust has been dropped. We got our bracket cut off, cleaned up on both sides. Back here, cleaned up. We also got our rod, where we had our little miter, cut off. This side's cleaned up. Now I'm gonna get this thing back up in there, and then we're gonna go ahead and mark this side of the rod, cut this off at our 45. We'll get that thing welded back together, and then we'll be able to weld our bracket back onto this main bracket on the muffler side. All right, now both sides of our exhaust are above our frame rail, so this is our lowest point. I have a block of wood right here, kind of holding everything up. These clamps are pretty tight. We're able to kind of rotate it a little bit inside that clamp as well. So now all we gotta do is reattach our bracket to our hanger and get that back in. And then hopefully, fingers crossed, we don't have to do too much on our exit sides. We will find out shortly though. Before I go put this thing back on the ground, because now that our license plate is not gonna stop us from going down and our driver's side exhaust won't stop us, next problem that we got is our tire was already hitting our bed sides on this side right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and mark out where our tire is, get these cut, make a nice little cut on our bed side without going all the way up on both sides. That way we could get this thing to sit a little bit lower before we go welding on our bracket, just to make sure we're clear of everything. All right, so now that we got our exhaust hung correctly and all our nuts and bolts are tightened, let's get this thing on the road and take a test drive. Let's go, baby. Our first real rip in the dime bag. Well, not a rip, not a rip.
Slow roll, big dog.
Just a little cruise. A slow roll.
And then I stop.
I feel like Andrew and I don't have very good luck with first rips.
This is a test.
Come on, man.
It's my first time, you know,
Driving a car. Done that before, guys, too.
I don't know.
The F100 build.
Yeah.
The hood flew up in test drive.
Oh my god.
Oh god. Wow. Some Ford hinges.
Oh, it definitely bent it.
Oh, it bent them.
We got lucky on that one. Real lucky. So yeah, first actual drive in the Dimebag C10. We rushed to get it running and driving, brought it out to Dyno's, put it through the parking lot, but this is actually the first drive on the street. So just want to make sure nothing breaks, falls off, blows up before we bring it over to the dyno.
Make sure the drive shaft doesn't break. Or we don't lock up our rear end.
Pinion bearing was smoked. Seems to be running real good. Didn't really put too much throttle in it. The only thing that we noticed is a little bit of a bind in the steering. So address that, little guy. See, it's a little sticky right there. Other than that, it's good. Transmission shifting.
So we gotta address why this door's not shutting.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah.
Next time we're just gonna upgrade all the latches.
Oh, for sure. You just gotta put late model style latches and it just. All right, successful first drive. The only thing that's broken is the door. All right, so now that we know Dimebag is fully functional, we've got some miles on it, engine's been running for a while, got no leaks, no problems with the engine, drivability. We're all ready to set to get on the dyno. One last thing I'm gonna do is get it up on the lift and then we're gonna check the fuel filter, because sometimes in assembly, things get stuck in the fuel tank and the fuel lines, whether it be from fabrication on the fuel tank, which we did do, and also making fuel lines potentially can get some debris in there. So pull the fuel filter off, the inline Holley fuel filter that we have in here, off one time, make sure there's nothing in there, make sure we don't run into any kind of fuel clogs or any issues with low fuel pressure once we get this thing rolling. So we're gonna pull off our filter, double check, make sure everything's a go, and then we should be ready to hit the rollers and see what kind of performance we can get out of this thing. Saw some tiny little debris in here, but I mean, you probably won't even be able to see it in the camera. So call that a plus. No problem found, but better to look than have an issue. All right, we are gonna be running the truck on ethanol as well. So Mikey's on a run to go get some fuel for this thing. We're gonna drain out the 93 octane, just very little in there, maybe a gallon or so. Drain that out, and we're gonna fill the cell up with, I think, 10 gallons of E85. Hopefully we don't run out of fuel in the dyno, because nobody likes that.
All right, it's dyno day for Dimebag. We are over here at Blow By Racing. The boys are up front, gapping our spark plugs or something. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah. Tightening the spark plug gap up.
And then we also have to pull out the 95 octane and replace it with some of that corn oil E85, baby. got Chris in the driver's seat with his computer, and you know what time that is. It's dyno time. Time to get Dimebag tuned up, ready for the streets. Let's go. This is our first attempt on our first dyno run. Let's keep our fingers crossed. All right, number one was not successful. What happened, boys?
We had some weird stuff going on. We went to fourth gear, and then the ECU said we were in park.
Oh.
And then we hit the brake pedal and went to reverse. And then it slowed down, then it worked fine.
Okay.
So we're gonna reflash it one more time.
Yeah, transmission is not happy for some reason.
The train doesn't know what to do.
So they're reflashing the TCU transmission control. Huh? Sounds good to me. Anyways, doing that, and we're gonna try it again.
So it says transition in 4, and we're in gear 1. Let's just see if it'll go to second real quick. It thinks it's in park right now.
But it's still in fifth. Fourth.
So it's in 5th. The problem is that you go to get throttle and it's breaking up and it's thinking it's in park. It's not in gear. If I let it drop back down to 3rd or 4th and give it a little gas, then it'll try to do something. He's making noises, I don't like it.
All right, it is dyno day number 2 for the Dimebag C10 project. We had some issues last time we were on the dyno with the transmission. We sorted that stuff out, so we're back out and starting to get this thing 100% dialed in. We're actually towing the truck to a different facility today. The weather is pretty shitty, so we're not gonna drive it. We're gonna head south a little bit and see if we can get this thing tuned up. We're out here at Gizmo's Power Factory. He's letting us rent out a dyno today. Blow By Racing was all booked up in this time frame that we had. Freddy from Spec Tuned is gonna be on the keys, getting everything dialed in. So let's get this thing loaded on the dyno and see what we can do. About that. All the way back. I'm gonna mess around a little bit and see how I can make this work. Okay. Our first dyno session didn't go so awesome. We were having trans controller problems. The second dyno session went a lot better, but we still had those same transmission issues. Not so much the transmission itself, but the transmission control. Well, we couldn't keep the truck from upshifting on the dyno, so we weren't able to get a full pull. When you're on the dynamometer, you don't want to have the car upshifting. It's really tough, and it's really hard on the equipment as well as the truck. So we weren't able to get a full peak dyno number, but that's okay because we were still able to get the drivability of the trucks straightened out. Air fuel ratios are right, and the timing curve is solid. We'll have to look further into getting a solution for the trans controller to be able to do all the things that we want. Regardless of that, we've got the engine tuned, it's running awesome, it makes tons of power, and it's super reliable. So that's what's essential, and we've got that completed. But we still have more work to do on the C10. Mainly, we are going to show you all the fabrication and process that goes into making this awesome raised bed floor, and we've also installed these awesome actuators for this lift gate here to show off all the craftsmanship and hard work that went in on the frame and everything else underneath. We also have more stuff coming for the 1965 Lincoln Godzilla swap, as well as the twin turbo Chevelle. So make sure you guys stay tuned. You don't want to miss out on any of the stuff that's coming up. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.